Good evening, and welcome to Rock Truth. I am your host, Selena K. And we thank you for joining us as we rock truth or absolutely nothing at all. We live in a society today where truth, even before our very eyes, is consistently questioned, criticized, and altered to fit a person's ideology of God's original intent for the kingdom and for mankind. We believe that the Bible, our kingdom constitution, is inspired, infallible, inerrant, and the final authority for all. Rock Truth Radio is founded on He who is the original point of reference for all things to come through eternity. Rock Truth Radio is a cross cultural response to the economic climate and social crises of today. Rock Truth is designed to serve the physical need of fallen man while serving the spiritual need he didn't know he had that impacts, affects, and infects generationally. Rock Truth Radio seeks to inspire, enlighten, and highlight upcoming and established local kings and queens of character while promoting Black consciousness and awareness of who we are and to who we belong. It is a kingdom renaissance. Well, fellow truthers, hi, how are you? Hi, Amaru.
What's going on? What's going on?
Man, welcome to the show. We are so excited to have you on today. This is such a hot topic, especially for the recent events surrounding the Jacob case.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah.
I was excited to be here due to that too.
Yeah, absolutely. I told you, I think that you were definitely timely. You know, you're right on time for such a time as this. We actually just changed our whole subject matter because this was so not about our education anymore. You know, this is about our civil rights, not being human rights, and about us being free and not just delivered. You know, so we are actually going to discuss the movie that appeared on Showtime. It also appeared on YouTube for a few weeks. They gave us a nice little sample of it, of 16 shots. And it is befitting to have you on here because you're also an activist, right, Amaru?
Absolutely, yes. Yes, I am.
So what activities have you been involved in, and what year did you start?
Ooh, that's a good question. I started back in what was 2020, like 2010, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
When I started at UW Milwaukee, I was the president of the National Association of Black Accountants school chapter of the Gold and Black Committee. These are some of the organizations that were at UW Milwaukee, and so that's what got my entry level into being an activist. And it was more on a campus-wide level, dealing with things as far as collegiate students and stuff like that. But then my introduction to activism as far as in the community. I mean, we did some things with the community, but my activism with the community didn't really get full blown until like 2014.
Okay. So what happened in 2014?
2014, it was just a calling because I saw the need. Well, you gotta know my story. So I grew up with a father in the home, with my biological father. And so, my stepfather was there, but I saw the need because I saw the need that was void in my life. Right. And I saw that I needed a mentor and things like that. So what happened was I started when I was a district manager at US Bank. I just started because we would give seminars, full-blown information sessions about finances, real estate, credit cards, checking accounts, things like that. And so when in the demographic I was in, and this is why it's prevalent today, I worked in Racine, Wisconsin, which is like 10 minutes away from Kenosha. And so I am very familiar with that area. And if you look at Racine, it's probably like 94% African American. And it's literally 10 minutes away from Kenosha. And so being in that area, being able to build those relationships with those business owners. And so that's when my activism started because I just saw a need for it. Just a lot of information that we don't know as it's privy to finances and things like that. And so that's when I started my journey.
Okay. So what did you participate in the McDonald case, the protesting at the time?
No. You know what was crazy about, this 16 shots is that
Yeah,
um a lot of cases, it's a lot of cases like this because
I'm
a
sure.
lot, like, we, cell phone cameras and things like that didn't start splurging
Mm-hmm.
onto the scene until like within the last 5 to 8 years.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
so you had the Frank Jew case here in Milwaukee, the Civil Smith case
Mm-hmm.
here in Milwaukee. That's what out started the 2016 riots,
Okay.
and the, outroar. So I mean, it was I didn't we knew of Laquan McDonald's case,
Yeah.
but we was,
Right.
being here in Wisconsin, couldn't get down there because it was just so much. There's always something going on here. You got
Right.
kids missing. You got
Right.
Mm-hmm.
then you got, not even with the police brutality piece. You got, crime that's ravaging your own community, right? And so
Right. Right.
you're
Right.
actually, you're just being pulled in different areas. And so no, at
Yeah.
that time, no, I was aware of the case. Now I followed the case, but I didn't actually go down to protest. No, I didn't.
Okay. Okay. Well, let's talk about 16 shots. If you could kind of take us through 16 shots through your eyes, and how you saw things, and how with the different material that you sent us for us to kind of look into regarding the case. So let's
I
talk
think
16 shots.
with this, I think is interesting because you got to understand, like, um, how they so back up, like, to give you full context. So you got to understand the city of Chicago. I worked in Chicago for almost 2 years, and so
Hmm.
I would,
Mm-hmm.
commute there. I commuted there, and so I only went to downtown. My job, I was a grant accountant for one of the nonprofits there, which is Youth Guidance, right? And
Okay.
so
Okay.
what their job, they did a lot of in school work, and so what they would do, it blew my mind when I got the job because I was just like, wow, this is like manna from heaven, right? Um, like I was an accountant, right? And so what we would do, we would actually be over these specific accounts for the different schools in Chicago. And
Okay.
so, for example, I give examples. So a lot of our sponsors were the professional sports teams there, right? The Chicago
Mm-hmm.
Bulls, Chicago White Sox, Cubs, Blackhawks, Chicago Sky, the women's team. I think the soccer team also. And so
Mm-hmm.
so like for instance, I was on a grant with Derrick Rose. Derrick Rose has a specific grant called the After Schools Matters grants, right?
Okay.
And so
Okay.
he donated, I think it was 1.2 million. And so my job was to oversee that grant to make sure they were expensing the right expenditures for that
Mm-hmm.
grant. So school supplies, books, pencils, things like that, right? What Ford suit that actual particular grant, right, for that project,
Hmm.
Mm-hmm.
right? Some were gun violence, things like that. And so, I mean, and then what they would do, we would, the grant would be completed, and then they would talk, have University of Chicago do research on it. And so,
Okay.
in some of these instances, too, in some of these specific grants, you would have like, and they had me sitting on an intervention. They would have the school council, like we would have actually counselors, social workers, and things like that who would have interventions at the schools, right? And
Okay.
so, like for example, we went one time. It was with what's the guy name? Prince Mukamara. He's one of the
Mm-hmm.
Bears, and it blew
Okay.
my mind because I'm like, wow, like this, and this is related to 16 shots. And so we walked into the school, and they would have choose a period, right? It would be kid, men, and they had women's too, but specifically I was dealing with the males. They would have males ages 15 to 18. They were in high school, and they would just come in and just vent on
Hmm.
their frustrations, the
Mm-hmm.
challenges they would have, things like that. And so, to make a long story short, I have some insight from the city of Chicago from that piece. And so when I'm looking at this documentary, I think it was greatly did, but I think that they left out some things that could have been covered in totality. One of the
Yeah.
things, and this is what I was talking about,
Uh
one
huh.
of the things is the FOIA Act, the Freedom
Okay.
of Information Act,
Yes.
Okay.
because when he went over that, they kind of briefly glossed over that.
Hmm.
Yeah.
But I think that was the critical piece, and for all of this unfolding, because I think this was like the perfect, like somebody said in the actual documentary, it was a tsunami, right? Because usually when you have these cases, they're not. I mean, you can't pick and choose when someone gets killed by the police, right? So it was. I hate to say, it was kind of like it was kind of meant for this to happen because you
Okay.
got to
Uh
think
huh.
about what happened. You have remember, Obama was in office.
Right.
He was in office during this time.
Right.
He's connected to Rahm Emanuel.
Right,
Right.
Rahm
right,
Emanuel, right? So he's the mayor. He was up for re-election at the time,
right.
Right.
right? In the documentary, also they talked about how the attorney for the family. So the attorney for the family subpoenaed the city and said, "Hey, we want to get information about
Mm-hmm.
this video." They denied them, so they went to Internal Affairs, right? Internal Affairs, and then Internal Affairs told them, "We don't do subpoenas." So they went back to the city and say, "Hey, we talked to Internal Affairs. They say they don't do subpoenas." The next clip, the guy says, "We just got an email with the video in it. I don't think y'all caught it, but he was like, I don't even know if he knew what he was sending." So think about that. If they knew what they wouldn't have sent it. And so what they were
Right.
doing, I guess the person they were talking to sent it inadvertently. You get what I'm saying? You understand what I'm saying? So he just like, "Oh, okay, just helping you out." If this was some other case, this would have never ever happened. So you had that happen. You had Anita Alvarez, who was at the time was the attorney, the state's attorney general. I mean, she
Right.
was the
Right.
city, the attorney, and so you had that going on. So it was like a multitude of things that were going on at that time, and I was just like, wow. And so they, and then you had I think the superintendent was also I think he was up for re-election also. So you had all of this stuff going on at the time, right?
Yeah.
And that FOIA Act, and that whoever that employee was who sent the actual tape, I think those were the two critical pieces in this, because if
I
those
agree.
two pieces never happen, this guy never gets charged and convicted. He
Right.
never gets charged
Yeah,
and convicted.
I would totally agree. I would totally agree. Yeah, I caught that
Wow.
part when they were saying that, the person sent over the information and they wasn't sure whether they knew what they were sending because they were
Right.
seriously getting the runarounds.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the code word for it is that it's under investigation. You know
Right.
what I'm saying?
Absolutely.
And then, Rahm Emanuel, he exposed the police department and he said, "Oh yeah, we've been working with this code of silence."
Yeah.
And that's been there for a minute. And if you watch all of the other police officers, they would refer back to, it's not 1994 or
Right.
it's not 1950. No, this not how it used to be. No, it ain't how it used to be. It's not how it used to be when you guys were running us, being able to do whatever it is that you wanted to do to us. You could kill us, you could beat us, you could, pull up on us and arrest us for absolutely nothing.
Mm-hmm.
And you still do it today, So yeah, no, this isn't
I don't
19.
even think they're arresting us anymore. They just pretty much closed their arresting door.
Listen,
Like,
it's a
shoot
wrap.
first.
It's a
Just
wrap.
shoot
Shoot
first.
first, shoot
Love a
black
black
first.
man, shoot first.
Shoot black first. Because apparently we're seeing like an array of people getting away with it, i.e. the shooter with the AR rifle.
Yep.
I can't even think of his
Yep.
name. I don't care what his name is. But for him
All
to
that
be able to
matters, he
walk
was
away,
17 years old.
he was 17.
Yeah.
He walked towards the police officers with his hands up. They're telling him
with
he
the
was the
gun.
one with the gun, right? He's telling them, they're telling him he did it. They just drove right past him like, get out the way. Do you want water? You want water? And then they said, we thank you guys for your service. And they were like, can we go this way? Can we go out this way? Right here. Like, the treatment. Explain that. Make that make sense to me.
They can't. And what's funny about this, this is 2020. You have Laquan McDonald.
Speak up, bro.
You have Laquan McDonald's case, 2016, 4 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
You have my man Eric Garner. You have Michael Brown. The list goes on and on. I read a report yesterday that since Brother Floyd passed, since that day, it's been 300 incidents of African American men being, African American police involved shootings.
300?
Yeah.
300.
That's
Think about
crazy.
that. And so think about that because these, I'm a stickler over information. I am very meticulous, and I like the Census Bureau and things like that, right? And so because I'm an accountant by nature, so I love numbers. But this man has been plastered all over TV for like the last 3 months, 3.5 months when all this stuff happened. You
Yeah,
know, we during the pandemic, 300 incidents of police involved shootings. And so that says a lot. That says a lot. Says a couple things to me. For one, it says that reform needs to happen. That's just bottom
Yeah.
line. That's a non-negotiable. Two, we need to be involved. We need to understand the law because they're like, I get it. You
I
got to
agree.
vote. I get it. You got to vote. You got to get there and all. You got to be in the polls and you got to vote people in. But it's not even that. The politicians, they don't care. And it's
No.
like
No.
I'm blown away by a lot of the people who will push you to vote, right? But then when it's about actually knowing the specific laws like the FOIA Act, like this
Yeah.
is
Right.
actually
Right.
a government website where you
Right.
can not if you want to file the motion or your attorney can file the motion to get that information released, and it's like we don't talk about, and that's what my frustration is, that we don't talk about those avenues more, about educating ourselves about the law and finding out what these laws mean and saying, hey, if you're going to vote and hold these people accountable, hold them
Mm-hmm.
accountable to these processes
Right.
because they're not
Right.
working. The
Hold them
unions,
accountable to their system.
the police unions, that's really glaring because especially in this documentary, when it was funny, like the part, and I was just rewatching it before I came on.
Right.
The guy, they showed the video, right? And then you had McCarthy. He says, well, he was a threat because he had a gun. That's the
Yeah.
superintendent. Think about
Right.
that.
Right.
After the shoot, after you
Right.
see, you had the dean guy. He was I think I forget what he was. I had it wrote down, but he was a detective or something. And he said, well, I don't really know what everybody was thinking in that moment.
Right.
These two
Mm-hmm.
people, these are
Right.
people that we are empowering with our vote.
Right.
Yeah.
If you have common sense and you can't just see a young man with his back turned walking away get shot 16
Right.
times, you don't need to be in
Right.
office. You don't need to
No.
be.
No.
No.
You don't.
But even with that, Amaru, like they signed all the way up, all of the
Yeah.
higher ups signed off on it as a justified
Mm-hmm.
killing. You
Yeah.
know,
That's the code of
not murder,
silence.
not murder. And that's the code of silence. And they even said the way the system is set up, that they have the opportunity to go ahead and cook their stories. They
Mm-hmm.
get time away. They get time to concoct
Yeah.
anything that they want to come. They get time to talk to the other people so they can coerce the stories. Even like with the witnesses, when they were discussing how they were interviewed
Nobody
by the
saw anything.
detectives. Yeah, they were pretty much, they had the way that it was written up. They were all summaries. They were never
Mm-hmm.
even witness statements,
Right.
verbatim statements, even if they wrote them themselves.
No
And they
detail.
pretty much left with the conclusion of, you know what, we didn't see nothing because
Didn't
we're
see
not changing our story from what we said we saw. How can you justify, how can you even go in your own head and believe that you shot this man one time in the chest? And the video camera, the witnesses, along with the body, the autopsy told the story.
Milwaukee, and this is one of the things I told them. I said, we talk about change. We talk about it, right?
Mm-hmm.
We throw that name around, we throw that term around, we throw diversity around, and we're all equal. I said, so sit back and think about this. Now, these are some of the smartest people. I said, you guys are some of the smartest people in the country. Some of
Right.
the smartest people in the country that makes money for this institution.
Mm-hmm.
I said, so you got 250 years of slavery. Well, 100 years of slavery. Well, no, I'm sorry. You have 250 years of slavery, 150 years of Reconstruction, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then you got 50 years of Jim Crow.
Mm-hmm.
50 years of Jim Crow allegedly, supposedly was supposed to have ended in 1968, right?
Sure.
I was born in 1980.
Right. Exactly.
Right? So if you really just, and it's not even that complicated. So if you think about it, right, they talk about generations are every 35 years, right? I'm finna be 40 in next month in October, right? So I'm the first generation born out of Jim Crow. A lot of us are, right? I said, if you think about 1968 and think about now, you think about our parents. So our parents are not are that generation that's actually coming out of the Jim Crow era. But we are this generation. I'm talking about my people, my age. I'm probably pretty sure you're around the same age. We are the first generation out of Jim Crow. the kids up under us, the
Right.
ones that's doing all the looting, because people, oh, the looting. I get it. You don't want to burn stuff down, but
Right.
I understand because they seen what they've done to our generation,
Right.
their grandparents,
Yep.
their great grandparents, and heard the stories and said,
Yep.
"No, we're not trusting y'all no more."
No.
And
Right.
so,
Absolutely.
like, it was like a bomb drop, because
Mm-hmm.
and these are white people and prominent position doctors and everything.
Mm-hmm.
It never got thrown to them that way. And I'm like, the point I was trying to make with them is that the reason this stuff's happening, if you ask me my personal opinion, it all reverts back to slavery.
Yeah.
Because you can't tell the person you oppressed for think about it, generations,
Mm-hmm.
right? You had 150 years of slavery, 200 years of slavery, 150 years of Reconstruction. That's 300 years. That's almost 11 generations,
Yeah.
right? Of
Yeah.
pass it down, your
Right.
slave to your slave
Right.
master, pass it down. So you have been accumulating wealth this whole time while we're
Mm-hmm.
just trying to be free, right?
Yeah.
Right.
So
Right.
how can you expect the African Americans who have been enslaved, and there's always go back to slavery, to say pull yourself up by the bootstraps when
Right.
you've had 11, 12, 13, 14, probably 15
Mm-hmm.
generations, because it's not documented, it's just estimated, of wealth, when we're
Mm-hmm.
just barely
Right.
making out of it. This is our
Right.
first generation
Right.
of doctors and lawyers and surgeons and stuff like that. So I said, this is ridiculous to even have this conversation, because until you understand that, you don't understand how it feels to walk in my shoes as an
Right.
Right.
African American, period.
Teach
Yeah.
King.
And so that and is so now, because we had that conversation now, and I think I sent it to you the other day. They want me to be the reviewer of the grants that's populating into the schools,
Yeah.
right?
Congratulations.
Thank you. And
Yeah. Yeah.
so,
Yeah.
but it always goes back to, for me, hold them accountable.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
I'm gonna keep telling.
Yep.
I don't care where you work at. I don't care if you work at McDonald's or you work at IBM. If you work in Google, Silicon Valley, you
Mm-hmm.
Right.
especially
Janitor
now.
or
I don't
corporate
care.
America. It don't matter. Like
Oh, don't
Hold
worry.
them
Do not worry.
accountable,
Teach King. Okay.
because a lot of us, and with the Laquan McDonald case, the young lady, she says, um, we're going to hold them accountable.
Mm-hmm.
And when she
Mm-hmm.
was referring them, she was referring to Anita Alvarez. She
Right.
was
Mm-hmm.
referring to McCarthy, the superintendent,
Right.
Rahm
Mm-hmm.
Emanuel, the big guys, right? But
Mm-hmm.
people always, they fall in love with the face. What about the
Mm-hmm.
system? They're just the face.
Mm-hmm.
That's not the
Right.
system.
Right.
It's a
Right.
hierarchy,
It
right?
is.
And
Right.
so
It
when you
is.
look at Chicago system, the Circuit City, I was Googling, look, it's a long hierarchy. And all
Mm-hmm.
those people have been benefiting off
Right.
black people,
Yeah.
Yeah.
exploiting us.
Yeah.
And so we could be on. That's what I'm saying. We could talk about this for days.
I'm
How
sure.
crazy layered this is. But hold them accountable. I
I
don't care
totally
about
agree.
feelings. No friends. It's not even
No, it's
personal.
not.
It's
It's
not
not.
Right.
personal. You know
It's
what I'm
Right.
not.
saying? It's not personal, because they will hold you accountable
Come
if
on.
they
Right.
see, if you walking through their neighborhood at some time of night, or you
Yeah.
ride through
Yes,
their
sir.
neighborhood.
Yeah.
What they gonna do? They gonna call the police. Hold,
Right.
what are you doing
Stand their
here?
right.
Who
What
are
you
Stand their
you?
doing?
ground.
Come on,
They
man.
Mm-hmm.
activate and they stand their ground laws.
So
Mm-hmm.
Like, so yeah, I totally agree. Like, accountability is important. That's the one thing that we're doing with A Voice for Lizelle. Like, the whole purpose of that is advocacy for our parents. And we're gonna hold the system accountable. You know, they walk in with attitudes. If they don't like who you are, if they don't like because you stand up for yourself and you don't allow people to walk over you, if they so-called get a they'll put people on your case to deliberately hinder you,
Mm-hmm.
to take your children. Like, I've
Yeah.
seen and watched it. Like,
Yeah.
from not just from the lower levels all the way up. You know, and I don't know what this is about. I don't know why they desire to divide families or steal children. However, not on my watch. You know, so we're here to hold the system accountable and make sure that everybody is doing their part and that we are actually healing and not coping further. You know, And one thing that we have that are issues in our homes, which is what we found, is the fact that it doesn't have a foundation. It doesn't have a foundation. And any crack you find in a foundation, it's considered condemned. And that's what we
Yeah.
have. We have condemned families. You know, we lack hierarchy in our family. We lack order. We lack structure. We lack discipline. You know, and that leads to lawlessness in the streets. So yeah, no, it's nothing personal. You know, it's just something that I believe that we should be doing. Isn't that love? Right?
Yeah. Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? It's correction. We don't accept or tolerate anything.
Oh, absolutely.
Correct you where you are. You
I
know.
just and you know things like platforms like this is excellent because it like I was listening to a podcast the other day and Tamika Mallory, I
Okay.
love her, and she said that she was talking to Ti, and this relevant to 16 shots. She says, you know, I'm just going back to your point about the structure. She said, you know, women, we have spaces where we can go and like mentor each other, talk each other, vent, right?
Right.
We don't hear the men doing that.
No.
And
No.
his Ti's response was the barbershop, but she said it's got to be more in depth than that, right? Because you go to the
Right.
barbershop
Right.
once a week or twice a month,
Right.
and then
Right.
you're not really getting fed. And so when she told me that, when she said that, that really sunk in. And so what I started doing, that, and this was like 2 months ago. So so on Saturday mornings I used to go. You know, I'm a mentor. I coach. Well, when
Right.
COVID happened, it shut all that down.
Right.
And so I was being lazy. I'm like, damn. And so when I heard her talk about that, what I've done is I called up all the guys that I know about my age and younger. We get up every Saturday and Sunday morning, right?
Mhm.
We go work out at
Yeah.
the school, right? Do some, you know, work out, run the miles. We do the stairs, and
Okay.
then we do the tires, right? That's probably about an hour, hour and a half.
Yeah.
But
About an
then
hour and a half. I
we
ran that today.
we
Okay.
move the setting, right? Because we don't want to be out there
I
all day, right? Or we don't
did.
want to, so we try to get them to put, but while we're doing these exercises, we're having these conversations as men.
Yeah.
And so
Right.
that was my
Yeah.
idea behind that because, and it's funny because when you have different age groups of men, you have different, and as you know, my brother, you have different point of views, right?
Yeah. Oh
Yeah.
yeah.
But
Yes, sir.
you
Yes, sir.
learning, we're all learning together, and we all
Yes.
disagree,
Yes,
but we
sir.
learn, and we all have the same agenda, but we
Yeah.
disagree on the minute details,
Right.
and
Like
it's fun.
everything.
It's fun. Yes, and so I have little cousins that's 16. One of them went to college, but he was with us. My other cousin is 23, 24, older men, 30. I'm the oldest guy. But
Okay.
trying to get them to understand, like, and they, they're doing it thinking we're just exercising. But I'm like, no, I want to exercise that mind too, those thoughts,
Yeah.
be
Exercise
around
the mind. Yes, sir. Yeah.
maturity. You know what I'm saying? Like, I didn't have those spaces
Yeah.
growing up. We didn't have those spaces growing up. And so when she said that,
Right.
I'm like, wow, like,
Exactly.
so, but like, and then
Yeah.
to pivot to 16 shots, I'm pretty sure, I am pretty doggone sure that if you had some of these conversations, probably like, let's say 10 years ago,
Mm-hmm.
20 years ago, with our men,
Mm-hmm.
I'm pretty sure that would reduce
Mm-hmm.
some of the bad decisions that we have made, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because when you round,
Yes.
Oh yeah.
you know what I'm saying? And so that was one thing of doing it. But then as it relates to this documentary that we watched, that we speaking on, um, with Laquan, right?
Right.
I'm pretty
Mm-hmm.
sure, and I don't know if he was on. I'm, the reports were allegedly and all that. But if he had some people that were in that space with him,
Yes.
he never gets in
Mm-hmm.
that
He
situation.
doesn't get there. He
He don't
doesn't
even get
get
in that
Right.
there because he's
situation.
Right.
supported.
Yeah.
He's supported. And
Right.
that's what we find. A lot of our parents, a lot of our young men and women out here, they lack the support. It's
Right.
not that they're into the system because
You know what I'm
we just
saying?
did the surface.
So
Yeah.
absolutely, we can. I'm down.
Absolutely
I'm
good. So with us closing, can you please give us some final thoughts on to just the entire social climate of today?
Well, I would just say again, my people, just be informed.
Teach King.
Find, like, if you know some black officers, And I hate that idea that the victim has to talk to, let's like the person's been raped, got to talk to
Teach
the
King.
rapist and say,
Teach
Right.
stop raping
King.
me. Like,
Right.
but I
Yeah.
think that,
Why would I
Right.
tell you that?
but I think in this instance, for this particular area space, it's going to have to come to that. And I
Yeah,
think it's
King.
sad, but I think it's
Mm-hmm.
going to have to come to that because, again, like on TV today, I watched Skip and Shannon too, and he said, we are the only race of people who have to actually talk to our kids to how to conduct themselves with the police.
We are the only ones.
Yeah.
Like I
Yeah.
don't and as I was telling a kid the other day, because I was in Kenosha, was it Saturday? I said, "This is not your fight.
Mm-hmm.
This is not your
Mm.
fight. You a baby. This
Yeah.
is our fight.
Yeah.
You know what I'm
Mm-hmm.
saying? Let us do it. We
Mm-hmm.
can do it other ways. Your job is to make it
Yeah.
home."
Yeah.
And so for
Yeah.
for
Right.
all of our babies, uh, if you're gay, straight, whatever your sexuality, orientation, whatever your everything, make it home.
Yeah.
That's your
Yeah.
noble
Yeah.
Teach
job.
King.
Make it home.
Life matters. Life
Yeah.
matters. Will, any
Yes.
final thoughts?
No.
Well, I know I definitely wanted to just pinpoint what you stated. Our issue is that we're ignorant and that we lack knowledge, and that's why we suffer, and we need to learn our rights, roles, and responsibilities as humans, period.
Yeah.
We need to know that to begin to know what the law is and then move forward. But we need to become more informed. And that's what we lack because we are lazy and we have become this microwave generation that just want everything like Pop-Tarts. And it's not happening. I was just saying to a friend, where are the harvesters? Where are the planters?
Yeah.
And so where you would actually take your time, plant, and you're getting ready and you're learning how things grow and how to cultivate and bring about change, et cetera, et cetera. Like what happened to that type of mentality? It's gone.
Mm-hmm.
But we definitely need to get back to that. We thank you so much, Amaru, for joining us. Amaru Wakefield, guys. Thank you so much. We'll have him back next week as we continue to discuss 16 shots, 15 seconds. And that in itself is ridiculous. All right, guys. Have a dope one.
I say.